by an English poet, and it is about the slave trade. England was one of the dominant players in the slave trade, not importing so many slaves to England, but taking them to the New World, a lot of them to Jamaica and their other English colonies in the Caribbean where they worked on sugar plantations. Now, remember this was written 40 years ago. And some of the phrasing and some of the nouns will no longer be correct. For example, it is entitled The Negro's Complaint. But that was the word of the day. So, this is The Negro's Complaint. It is the voice of a slave who has been shipped, who has been captured, marched, put on a ship, crossed the Atlantic, and brought to a sugar plantation. Forced from home and all its pleasures, Africa's coast I left forlorn, to increase a stranger's treasures, o'er the raging billows borne. Men from England bought and sold me, paid my price in paltry gold. But though theirs they have enrolled me, mines are never to be sold. Still in thought as free as ever, what are England's rights, I ask? Me from my delights to sever, me to torture, me to task. Fleecy locks and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skins may differ, but affection dwells in white and black the same. Why did all creating nature make the plant for which we toil? Sighs must fan it, tears must water, sweat of ours must dress the soil. Think, ye masters, iron-hearted, lolling at your jovial boards, dinner table. Think how many backs have smarted for the sweets your cane affords. Is there, as ye sometimes tell us, is there one who reigns on high? And has he bid you buy and sell us, speaking from his throne, the sky? Ask him if your knotted scourges, your matches, your blood-extorting screws, are the means that duty urges agents of his will to use. A question, but hark, he answers, wild tornadoes, strewing yonder sea with wrecks, wasting towns, plantations, meadows are the voice with which he speaks. He, foreseeing what vexations Africa's sons should undergo, fixed their tyrants' habitations where his whirlwinds answer, no. deem our nation brutes no longer, till some reason you shall find worthier of regard and stronger than the color of our kind. You slaves of gold, whose sordid dealings tarnish all your boasted powers, prove that you have human feelings before you proudly question ours. Okay, before we do our little song, I'd like to tell you that you have just heard two poems by the same poet. The man who wrote a poem whose verses were adapted for God Moves in a Mysterious Way, William Cowper. And yes, I know it's spelled, so you want to pronounce it Cowper, C-O-W-P-E-R. But trust the English major and poet, son of the English teacher and poet, that when I geek out, no matter how it's spelled, he pronounced it Cooper. He also wrote The Negro's Complaint. A poem, old and sort of, very 18th century in his language, and yet Martin Luther King often quoted 4 lines from it in his speeches and sermons. And the 4 lines were, fleecy locks and blank complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skins may differ, but affection dwells in white and black the same. William Cowper was a man who led a troubled life, at least early, and he was committed for a while to an asylum. The first one in England that treated mental illness as an illness rather than a curse or a demon possessing you. Apparently it did him some good. He came out of the asylum a fierce abolitionist. For remember that England banned the slave trade before we did. And he wrote many poems, some hymns. And this fierce abolitionist writing hymns became, not surprisingly, friendly with a man named John Newton, who wrote Amazing Grace, and was himself, it is said, the captain of a slave ship until he had a revelation of what he was doing. Well, that's the end of the lesson. Please be seated. Make yourselves at home. All right, I'm going to take a little more room than usual for this today. The title of this sermon is Eyeless and Clueless. But first we're going to have little Bible stories. There was a judge of the people of Israel. This is in the time before the kings, where they were ruled and guided by various judges. And this judge, Manoah, had a barren wife. She never got pregnant. It always gets sort of put on the wife being barren, but the Old Testament contains many specific genealogies. It doesn't have the sperm counts of the judges of the people of Israel, so we don't know. And as is often the case in both Hebrew and Christian scriptures, the wife does not have a name in this story. But she was not pregnant when an angel of the Lord came to her and said, "You shall bear a son." So there's one of these announced births. So you know it's an important person. "You shall bear a son," said the angel, "and you shall have no wine or strong drink in your pregnancy, and he shall be a Nazirite." It's not a Nazarene. We're not talking about coming from Nazareth. We're talking about a person set aside and holy and dedicated to the words of God. And a Nazarite never could drink wine or strong drink, could not touch a dead body. Well, you'll see how the story plays out. And no razor shall ever touch his head. Never shave. Never cut his long locks. For he is separated, consecrated to God from birth. And he will begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines, who had pretty much conquered them at the time. The baby is born. They name him Samson. He grows, and the Spirit of the Lord begins to stir him. He's special, despite his assumed commitment to purity. He sees a Philistine woman at a gathering, and he wants her. So he tells his father, "Get her for me," which is not how sons usually address their fathers in a patriarchal culture. And the father says, "Well, she's a Philistine. You can't marry her. They're not even circumcised, these people. No. And he says to his father, "Get her for me." So Dad does. Samson is determined to marry her. At the feast before the wedding, he gets into sort of an argument with some of her family, her Philistine family, about a riddle, and kills 30 of them, which puts a damper on the proceedings. And, quote, in hot anger, he abandons her and goes home to his family. She, again, not named, is given to his best man. But later, Samson, he does really want to have this woman. So he goes back to that community to see her and says to her family, "I'm here to marry her." And they say, of course, "No way." So this time he says, "I will really wreak my anger upon the Philistines." Samson then caught 300 foxes, got them all together, set their tails on fire, and turned them loose in the wheat fields, the vineyards, and the olive groves. Complete disaster and crop failure that year for the Philistines. Philistines in, I don't know what, revenge or something, burned the wife and her father.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, this is all ay. We'll leave this story pretty soon. Anyway, then they go after Samson and they catch him and they surround him and they bind him with stout ropes. But the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. He broke the ropes. He picked up the jawbone of a donkey and killed 1,000 men. Later, he falls in love with another Philistine woman named Delilah. So you know where this is going. Well, the lords of the Philistines go to see Delilah and they offer her a fortune in silver just to find out the source of Samson's strength and how to subdue him. Well, every time Samson visits Delilah, she asks him, "What makes you so strong, honey?" And just theoretically, how could you be bound so that someone could subdue you? He doesn't seem to catch on very fast, oh boy. But anyway, 3 times he gives her a tricky, choking answer. And the 4th time she says, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have tricked me 3 times. So he tells her everything. That he is a Nazirite, that he's special from birth. And he says, if my head were shaved, I would become weak and be like everybody else. She let him fall asleep on her lap. When he awoke, he didn't know that the Lord had left him. Philistines, waiting, broke in, seized him, gouged out his eyes, bound him, took him to Gaza, shackled him, and made him grind at the mill in prison. Eyeless in Gaza, thank you, John O'Hara. But as he turned that grinded wheel, hitched to it like an ox, slowly, silently, his hair began to grow. The Philistines didn't notice this. At the feast of Dagon, their god, they brought the famous terrorist Samson that they'd captured to the temple to honor their god. And they mocked Samson and they chained him between 2 stout pillars that held up the roof of the temple. And Samson said, "Remember me, God. Remember me. Give me back my strength that I may avenge my eyes." He put his hands on the pillars and strength restored, rushed them apart. The roof fell, and the story concludes. So those he killed at his death were more than those he had killed during his life. Okay, we never went to church, my family, when I was a kid, but there's a wonderful book of Bible stories with really terrific illustrations. And this story, the Samson story, was very exciting to me when I was a boy. Later, I felt a deep kinship with Samson when I was an adolescent. A misunderstood adolescent. I've been searching, is there another kind? all the great deeds end in death and sad. But they're a glimpse of light to see a few things by. And of course, there's so many ways to look at any Bible story. This is particularly this one. You could look at it from a religious slant as competitive monotheism in Palestine. So some things go on. And if you see it as the struggle between the followers of different gods, the plot and the places, Gaza, echo in our ears. You can see it as the portrait of a terrorist, for that was the method he chose of beginning to deliver Israel from the Philistines. He was clever in his way, destroying all the crops, and his imagination is like that of September 11th in some ways, it seems to me. Spectacular and unexpected destruction from common objects improvised. But I want to look at this in terms of the unripe, untamed male and his coming of age. Ideally, coming into his own and becoming someone who can join, who can share. Not so for Samson, and not so for others, and I think most of us males, if you can send yourself back to being a boy and a teenager, can remember some of these feelings, some of these ways of seeing the world, seeing yourself, and being seen. And some people, some few unlucky males, never really come into their own or become someone who can join and who can share. They can be the alienated teenagers or the misfit loners in their 20s and 30s who act out so grievously. If they are doubly blessed and are narcissists as well, their need to prove to themselves that they exist leads them out into society, the public, even if they are antisocial. Power in their hands can be affirmation for them and tragedy for us. But back to Samson. He has contact, violent contact with people, but never connection, except when he trusts Delilah and tells all. Delilah, it is said, is a pun on the Hebrew word for night, and Samson's name is related to sun. I'm not a scholar, but I do know that she puts out the light. But it's the only person he connects with. He has had no previous connection. He has no experience of another person, really. So it's no surprise that he's not a very good judge of whom to trust. And his attempts to join and be joined with the Philistine woman at the wedding in the beginning, and with Delilah, and he goes to visit a prostitute at one point. I skipped that part of the story, but he got killed. But the prostitute he visits is a Philistine. So he's definitely got some stuff. but his attempts to join are juvenile and brutal. And this is a form of the special male, set apart by his gifts. And he's full of feeling that can't be known or named. That was a good poem to read today, Mark, thank you. He's full of feeling that can't be known or named even by the boy, but it is deeply felt. This is the boy sulking, silent, shut down, the boy who knows that boys don't cry. And not much else when it comes to emotions. Becomes the man who says, and then I got emotional, and means cried, shed tears for sorrow or loss, and even occasionally for joy, and is ashamed afterwards and has to apologize for getting emotional. As though you were continually driven by emotion he can't deign to try to understand. Now, some men are just emotionally abandoned tragically in their childhoods, but some have the added burden of being treated as special, privileged. And when that person's unformed self is threatened, he is extremely dangerous. Inept at trust and unable to connect. How can he communicate? Really, how can you communicate when intimacy is an equality, a common humanity? He acts upon people. He doesn't share with people. These Bible stories are compact, and they use symbols powerfully and skillfully. And one of the symbols I believe they use in this story is hair. Hair as the life force. What are you talking about? It grows even in the grave. The archetypes with hair. Bride with her flowing locks, ready to take a husband to join and be joined. Or how about hair wild, untamed, creative? When I was a kid, we had a children's encyclopedia, which had an article about Albert Einstein, and a photograph there, which showed him with his hair completely unkempt, kind of curly, long, and standing straight up. And we always referred to him as the genius with curly hair. Yeah. Hair, other archetypes, standing on end in fear or at contact with the divine. So look at so many images of the Buddha. He has tightly composed curls, life force under control. Samson, life force as pure force, both will and physical strength. When the Spirit of the Lord rushes upon him, it is manifest in violence, never vision. He is deprived, finally, of sight, but never of violence. Those guys always brings violence. He's supposed to free the Jewish people, but he is such a contrast to the blessings of the chosen people, the blessings of life itself, fruitful land, home and family and immortality through your descendants. would say, although I never met the gentleman, that he has a death wish. Rather than be mixed with, alloyed with, shared with, or equal to anybody else. He can't live like everybody else, right? What happens if his hair is cut off? He'd be just like anybody else, as he tells Delilah. He can't live like everybody else. We all get born, but his birth was special and announced by an angel. We all die, but he dies special, spectacular, and strong. Nor can he imagine the world any differently. He'll have to bring down the world with him and take as many with him as he can. In our culture, the rugged individualism manifests as what sort of archetypes? Pioneer, cowboy, private eye, pirate, warrior, rebel, Confederate, the lost cause, entrepreneur, disruptor, eccentric Elon billionaire heroes. They can be worshipped, but how can this model of a male be trusted? And how can he trust? And who can he trust? Famed as innovators or discoverers, what do they create? Well, parents and sisters, teach, please teach. Brothers, please, let's learn that we are not special, but loved. Ooh. We are not set apart, but welcomed in. That the force we have can be shared. We are not the Messiah, the anointed one, just another child of God, but not the God of vengeance or thunder. Unlike some divinities, we can tell our secret name. Mere humans may look upon us and live. We don't have to destroy those who know our nakedness or fear those who know our weakness. As a matter of fact, as in the Gospel of Thomas 70, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. The Spirit of God may rush upon us, but we can let it flow through and out of us and to others. We can know a God who is more than a whirlwind or earthquake. And we don't have to quake the earth to move it. We could, for example, replenish it. Make it more fertile and pass it on. Those blessings of Genesis. But replenishing the earth, making things more fertile, passing things on, nurturing, God help us, these are called female virtues and women's roles. Where have we exiled ourselves that those would not be our roles? Can we understand that there is a future and there was a past that loved us and included us and did more than set us apart? It prepared prepared us a place. This improbably and unnecessarily and fantastically beautiful and abundant earth. He prepared us a place and a family, every living creature with whom to share. So I see Moses and Jesus as ones who say yes, and Samson as a big resounding no. But why look back when it's right here? Have you seen God? Well, have you seen anyone look at you? Really? Look at you deep, scary, fond, accepting, welcome you home or home again. If you've seen that, then you've seen God. If you looked at anyone like that, then God looked out at you. Have you felt love from someone? Felt safe in someone's arms? Felt safe in someone's heart? Because, brother, when you hold another, you hold all that is small and much that doesn't feel worthy of being held. When you hold another, you encompass all that is expansive and creative. You hold room itself and the gift of time. When you hold a body, you hold a heart that may be naked, and you hold a heart that may be clothed in doubt, denial, or desire. When you hold the one you love, you hold a place infinitely deep where you could fall forever, where you could even dream in safety. And it aches in your heart. It aches in your heart. I know that yours is the heart that has to be the place where all that damage, all that work, all that other must be safe. Bless us all.